start recording this here. Okay, I think we can all see this now. And so let's see. So it says the graph of a linear function f is shown. Identify the slope, the y-intercept, and the x-intercept, and then write the equation that defines f. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do here, we're going to find the slope of the line. So if you remember, the slope, we often refer to this, y'all, as the rise over the run. So when I look at the line that I have here, my line is coming down. And what I mean by coming down is the line is going this way, right? It's heading down. As I read it from the left to the right, the line is falling down, which tells me that we're going to have a negative slope, okay? And so I'm going to see if I can zoom in a little bit here. There we go, just so we can see a little bit better. And let me see, here we go. So it looks like we're hitting the point right here. We're starting right here, and we're ending right there. So that would mean if I were to get from this green point to that green point, I'm going to say, look, I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I'm coming down 10, so it's a negative 10 over 2 to the right, positive 2, and that gives me a negative 5.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so our slope here ends up being negative 5. So right here, I would just put the number negative 5.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second part it's asking me to do is it's asking us to find the y-intercept. So the y-intercept just means where is it going to cross the y-axis? So this point right up here had coordinates 0 and 10. So my y-intercept is going to be the point 0, 10. That's where it hits the y-axis, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, and actually, David, I think this, you asked me a question similar to this earlier today. And in David's graph, the way the picture was drawn, we couldn't see where it hits the x-axis. In this picture, we actually can. So if I zoom in right here, this point right here is my x-intercept. That just means where does it hit the x line, right? So here's my x line, and here's my y line, right? So when it's asking me for the y-intercept, it's just asking me when is it going to hit this line, and when it's asking for the x-intercept, it's just asking me when is it going to hit that line. And in this case, it hits it at the point 2, 0. So then we would say our x-intercept is the point 2, 0. And then now the last thing I'm going to do here, y'all, is if we're going to write out our equation in the form y equals mx plus b, remember the m is my slope, and the b is the y coordinate of my y-intercept. So we would come back here and we'd say, look, y equals m. M, we found it to be a negative 5 with an x, plus b. B is the y coordinate of the y-intercept. So in this case, it would be y equals negative 5x plus 10. And because it is asking me to write using function notation, when you get to part B, the way it's going to be written in MyLab is it'll say f of x equals, and then all you would really do here is y'all would just write in negative 5x plus 10. And all that's saying, guys, is that instead of using the letter y, we're using f of x. They mean the same kind of thing. It's like, okay, so Liz, I don't know if your full name is Elizabeth or if it's actually, Liz, but for some people whose name is Elizabeth, we say Liz. So
it's actually just Liz.
Okay, it's actually just Liz, right? But
yep.
for some people, if their name is Elizabeth, we call them Liz. That's kind of what y and f of x are like. So y could be Elizabeth and f of x could be Liz. It's the same thing. The only part that the reason why they use f of x is just to sort of re-emphasize the idea that some equations are in fact functions and lines are functions themselves. And that's the only reason why they're saying, how would we write an equation that defines f, the function? It's still an equation, but these happen to be functions as well, and that's why they're using the f of x. Did that make sense for that particular problem? Were we good there?
Yeah, I think she had probably a problem because it looks like she's inactive already. connection.
We'll see if she comes back in. But yeah, David, this problem was kind of real similar to the one that we did earlier today, and the only difference is yours on the graph we couldn't see the x-intercept. We were still able to figure it out, right?
So yes, and actually that's what I was going to ask. Now that you have this one here, okay, so like let's say if I wanted to get x, let's say for example it's not showing the graph, I want to figure out what's the x. So then I would
definitely. Yeah,
so
we can definitely do that.
Okay.
Yeah, so remember what we're doing. Remember, like I didn't necessarily need this part here to write out this equation, right? Or this equation right here, right? So what I would do here is I would say, look, how would I find my x-intercept? Suppose I already knew my y-intercept and my slope, right? Well, then I would say, look, this is going to be y equals mx plus b, and we're going to have y equals negative 5x plus 10. And so just like when we're doing the y-intercept, in the y-intercept, the first number is 0. Well, in the x-intercept, the second number is 0. And remember, this refers to the x, and that refers to the y. So what I would do here is I would say, well, look, let me put the 0 right here where the y used to be, and let me take this equation and let me go ahead and solve this problem. So the first thing I would do here is I would say, look, let me bring this 5x back to that side. And since it's a negative 5x right now, when we cross the equal sign, it's going to become a positive 5x. And then I would just divide both sides by the number 5, and we'd end up with x is equal to 2. So we would say our x-intercept is the 0.20, which is in fact what we had right there, right? So we can still do it. We can still do it, yeah, algebraically. Like we can still do it by solving an equation, even if my picture doesn't show me. Even if my picture doesn't show me, the whole thing, right, to where we couldn't see it.
Right.
So yeah, we can still do it that way.
Yeah, I think Liz is back already.
Yes, yeah. Sorry about that. I had to reconnect.
It's all good. No worries, no worries. I just wanted to make sure, Liz, that we were okay on how I came up with the equation.
Yes, I get it now. It was just for that while, and I said I'm gonna ask him to share an example, but I had a hard time just starting it. It was like I was having to guess at the points. For some reason, I just couldn't see it, but I get it now. Thank you.
Yeah. So guys, I know that the stuff for these next couple of weeks just opened up. I'm actually going to share something with you guys. So let me stop sharing that screen there, and let me pull up, let's see, let me pull up my Blackboard page. So yeah, you guys can see this now. And so if I click on the weekly activities folder, guys, so we have weeks 5 and 6 already. So in week 5, what are we doing? We only got 2 sections for this week, y'all. It's 2.7 and 2.8. And so I'm going to give you a heads up right now. 2.7 can be a little tricky, but 2.8 really is not that bad. So this is what I was thinking was, if you guys have time, I want to do a little bit of 2.8 with you guys today. What I would recommend doing, like if I was sitting where you're sitting, I would probably do section 2.8 first. The main reason I would do 2.8 first is because I think it's easier than 2.7, and you can probably knock out those problems much faster, and then you can take more time going through 2.7. And then there's a quiz over chapter 2, and then let's see, what else do we got? Okay, so then the next thing we have, guys, for the week after, the only thing you all got to worry about is we're going to be taking our first test, okay? So the review for the first test will be due by Thursday, October the 7th, okay? So that's obviously not this Thursday, and that's not next Thursday, it's the Thursday after that, right? So you still got plenty of time. But what I wanted to do would be on, let's see, okay, when we're going to have our class session, basically 2 weeks from the night, what I want to do that night is review as many questions from that, go over as many questions from that review as we can. So what I would say is, like, between now and say next Wednesday, let's try to knock out 2.8, and then and try to do 2.7, and then next Wednesday night, what I'll do is any questions you guys have out of 2.7 or 2.8, we'll knock those out. And then between that and between next Wednesday and the Wednesday after that, you guys would work on your review. So then when we meet again on Wednesday, October the 6th, we could do as many questions over the review as we can. And then that night, guys, once we're done with our reviewing stuff, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the test for you guys. And you guys can take the test anytime between Wednesday and Sunday. So you'll have, 4 days, 4.5 days, whatever it is, to get the test done. It's probably going to end at, like midnight, Sunday, something like that. The only thing is there's a 4-hour time limit. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to take you 4 hours. And for the most part, it never, when I did this last year, it never took anybody 4 hours. The test has 20 questions, right? Those 20 questions, y'all, come directly out of the review, right? So remember, the review has 49, right? And then the test has 20. And those 20 questions come directly from those 49. So if you do the review and you can understand those problems, then when you're taking the test, what I really did is I just said, let me pick this problem, let me pick that problem, but they came directly out of those 49, right? So when you're taking your test, every question you're going to see, like you'll have already seen it before, right? So the question that we just did right now, Liz, with the one with the line, that might be a question on the test, right? If that question, I'm just going to make this up, if that question ends up being on the review, then it's possible that it may be on the test as well, right? Not guaranteed, but it could be. But every question from the test comes directly from the review. So, guys, the other thing is I have a formula sheet right here. You can use your notes. You can use any calculator you have. You can use that calculator app that you guys got, okay? Now, like I said, there's a 4-hour time limit. So all that means is that once you start the test, the timer starts going, right? And it's going to keep going until you finish, right? And so you got 4 hours. So what that means is if suppose you decide to start the test on Thursday night and you get through the first 10 questions, you can't say, let me work on this later. You got to make sure you do it all in, basically you're doing it all in one session, okay?
Right.
So the one thing I'm going to recommend is you make sure that you carve out a 4-hour block of your time. Like I said, it's not necessarily that's going to take you 4 hours. I put 4 hours so that you're not pressed for time, right? But I can't leave it open for 20 hours or something like that. It's got to be something reasonable. So you just want to make sure that, if you have somewhere to be at 8 o'clock, don't start the test at 7 because now you only have an hour to get it done, right? That's basically what I'm trying to say for that. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I hope, does that make sense in terms of how the test is going to work out and everything?
Yes.
Y'all feel, yeah, we're good?
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me ask you a question. Did you guys have any other questions for me that you wanted to ask me about homework?
I do.
Yes, ma'am. Well, let's go over them. So let me stop sharing this part here, and we'll come back to my notes. And whatever questions you have, we'll go over them. So
let me just find it because I missed. Okay, here.
Yeah. Take your time.
Homework 2.4 linear functions. It was the last problems 11 and 12. It's just I wanted to, it's just a long process. I don't know if I can remember all that from on the top of my head for the test, but I'm sure if I practice some examples, I can figure it out.
Yeah. You said this was out of section, which one again? I'm sorry?
2.4 linear functions.
Uh-huh. And what problem was it?
11 and 12, whichever one of those.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, yeah. So I'll tell you what, let's do this. Let me pull this up here. And let's do, I'm going to do my number 11. So I'm going to pull this up here. And let me do this. Let's go like that. There we go. Okay. And let me just make sure that you guys we can see this. Okay, perfect. All right, yes. So let's go ahead and go through this problem here. And it says, A firm will break even, which means that there's no profit or no loss as long as the revenue just equals the cost. It says the value of X, X stands for the number of items produced and sold, where the cost of X is equal to the revenue of X. And it's called the break-even point. So it says, assume the table below can be expressed as a linear function. The first part says, let's find the cost function. Okay, so let's see, we're going to find the cost function here. Whatever it is we're making, right? So we're making, I don't know, we're making breakfast tacos or something like that. It really doesn't matter what it is. We're going to figure out how much it's going to cost us. Okay, so the fixed cost is no matter how many tacos or how many headphones or how many, radios or whatever it is we're making, however many we sell, we got to spend $200. So we can think of the $200 as like the rent. We're going to pay that no matter how much we make. So our cost function is going to be 200. The variable cost says for every pair of headphones or for every radio or for every taco, whatever it is, we're going to have to spend $20 to make each one of those. So we're going to put 20 times however many radios or headphones or whatever it is we're selling. So this here would be my cost function. Okay. So the fixed cost is always going to be there. And then the variable cost says take that number and multiply it by the number of whatever it is we're making. Okay. So here's my answer for part A. And then let's take a look for part B, the revenue function. So the revenue function tells me how much money we're going to bring in. Okay. So the price of the item, that's how much we're selling these radios or headphones or whatever it is we're making it. We're selling them for $30. So if we make 100, we're going to take 100 times 30. So this here ends up being my revenue function, right? So think about it this way. This here is our money that we spent. And this here is the money that we brought in, okay? Now, there is a third part, and the third part says we're going to find the profit function. Okay, the profit function. So think about what the profit is going to tell me. Profit means whatever money I bring in, I'm going to subtract off whatever money I spent, and that's going to be my profit, whatever I'm left with, right? So how much money did we bring in? We brought in 30, whatever that happens to be. Then we're going to subtract this piece. Now, since that piece up here, y'all, has two terms, I got to write them in parentheses. So I got to write them like this. Okay? And then all I'm going to do here is I'm going to say P of X is equal to 30X. Now remember, I can think of the number here being a -1. So I'm going to multiply both those pieces there by -1. That becomes a minus 200. Oops, that was a 20. And a minus 20X. So then my profit, 30 minus 20
X
is 10X minus 200. Yeah. That's our profit. Okay. So we now found an equation for our profit function. So if I come back up here at the top, we found the cost function. Yes, we did. We found the revenue function. Yes, we did. And we found the profit function. So now we only have one last part. It says we're going to find the break-even point. Okay, so the break-even point, guys, means suppose I'm going to make this up. Suppose how much money did we spend? I don't know. I'm going to say we spent something like, let me see. I'm going to say we spent something like $400. How much money did we bring in? We brought in $400. So remember what my profit is. I'm going to take the money that I brought in. I'm going to subtract the money that I spent. 400 minus 400, we broke even. Yeah, we didn't make any money. We didn't lose any money. So the profit, so the break-even point occurs when these two numbers are the same or when the profit happens to be 0. So we already know what our profit looks like. That's the equation that describes my profit function. So the way I'm going to find my break-even point is I'm going to take this equation here, and I'm going to set it equal to 0. So I'm going to go 10x minus 200 equals 0, because now my profit is 0. So when I move that 200 over there, that 200 is going to become from a negative to a positive, and then I'm going to divide both sides by 10, and this will cancel with that, and we're going to end up with 20. So that means that we have to sell 20 radios or 20 headphones or 20 whatever it is we're selling in order for our profit to be, in order for us to break even, right?
Right.
And so when I look at part B, it tells me, can we find the break-even point? We just did, but then it says, and decide whether the product should be produced given the restrictions on sales. So what do you mean by the restrictions on sales? If I look at my problem here, the way they gave it to me, they said, according to the restriction, no more than 19 units can be sold. So we can't sell more than 19. But in order for us to break even, we need to sell how many?
20.
We need to sell 20. So then we're going to say, should the product be produced? We're going to say no, because we need to make and sell more than 19 in order for us to break even, right? So what I want to do here, y'all, and I know I wrote a lot of mess here, and I know it seems like a lot. So what I want to do is I'm going to pull up the problem that I got out of the homework, and I'm going to share it on my screen, and I'm going to show you exactly how I'm going to write my answers in, so that you know exactly how to write your answers in. Okay, so I'm looking at what I wrote here, right? And I'm going to have it on my background so I can see what I'm doing, but I'm going to share with you guys the screen for my homework. Okay, so here we go. And I want to say that we said our cost function was 200 plus 20 with an x. And I'm going to check my answer, and we got that part right. And then we said our profit function was 30x, and I'm going to check my answer there, and that part was the same thing. And then for our profit function, we came up with 10x minus 200. That's what we came up with when we wrote it all out, and we got that part right. And then it says the break-even point is how many units? 20, right? And then it says, thus the product should be produced or it should not be produced. And we said we shouldn't produce it because we could only make and sell 19, and we got to make more than that. So we're going to say the break-even point is 20. So therefore we shouldn't make it. And I'm going to check my answer, and we got it.
Okay.
Right. So I hope that, Liz, did that make sense in terms of how I was able to work it out?
It does. I just wanted to walk through it.
Yeah, no.
Let me ask. I have to ask, will one of these be in on the test?
Yeah, no. I want to make sure that we're good with this. So yeah, definitely. And I'll tell you what. Look, we have time. Let's do this one here, and we'll do it exactly the same way we did the other one. And this way, there's no surprises, and we know that we know how to do these because we've done them both. So let me stop sharing this, and let me come back to my notes again. And let's see. So here we go. And so all I'm going to do is just paste this problem here. Here we go. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see that a little better. There we go. And yes, I think you guys can see that now. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing that we did before. And what's actually nice about this problem is, look, they already give us the cost function, and they give us the revenue function. We want to find the break-even point, and then the cost and the revenue at that break-even point. Okay, so remember, the way we find our break-even point is we're going to find the profit function. Remember, the profit function is just the revenue minus the cost. So my profit function is going to be the revenue, which in this case is 230x, minus the cost, which is all this stuff right here. So I'm going to put that again in parentheses. Okay. And we're going to say our profit function is 230x. Remember, I'm going to think of this here as a -1, and I'm going to multiply it times both those parts. So that's going to become a minus 200x and a minus 600. So guys, before I go on, I really want to emphasize that when I do my subtraction here, this piece here always has to be in parentheses, because if it isn't, then the only part that gets the minus is that part. But this one also has to change as well. Okay. And then so now what I'm going to do, I'm going to say, look, what's our profit equal to? Well, 230 minus 200
30x
is just 30x
minus 600.
minus 600. Okay. And now, so the way we find our break-even point is we're going to take this piece right here, and we're going to set it equal to 0, because we know that our profit is now going to be 0. So I'll move that 600 over there. And since it's a negative, when we cross equal sign, it becomes positive. We're going to divide both sides by 30. And so those will go away. And 60 divided by 30 is just 20. Okay. So now when I come back over here, the break-even point is how many units? 20, right? Then the last part of the question says we want to find the cost and the revenue at that break-even point. So what does that mean I'm going to do? That means if I want to find the revenue, remember my revenue function R of X was 230X. So what we're going to do now is we're going to find R of 20.
20.
So we're going to take 230 times 20. I'm just going to do this on my calculator right here, y'all. Just on my phone right in front of me. 230 times 20. I'm coming up with 4,600. Okay. And I'm going to give you a hint. If we find C of 20, we're also going to come up with 4,600. Because remember what we said earlier, that whatever money we bring in is going to be the same as we spent, and that's why it's going to be 0 at our break-even point, because we didn't make any money and we didn't lose any money, right? So now again, I'm going to do just like we did before, y'all. I'm going to share the screen that has my particular problem, so that we can all see how am I going to enter this part in. So let me pull that up for you guys again. Here we go. And there we go. Excellent. Okay, so let's see. We said our break-even point was at 20. I'm going to check my answer. There we go. And then the number that we came up with was 4,600. I'm going to put 4,600. I'm going to check my answer. And again, I'm going to put 4,600, because those two, whatever number I get here, I'm going to get the same exact number I get there, right? And we got it, right? So let me ask you a question. Between 11 and 12, which one seemed easier?
12.
12. And probably because we didn't have to do as much of the work, because they gave me the cost and they gave me the revenue, right?
Right.
So I think that part makes it easier, just because that's what we have. Okay. Good. Any other questions you guys have about anything?
Just on the exam, on the test, we're just gonna go ahead and do we do that lockdown browser, and or how is it that it's just
There's no lockdown browser. Yeah, you're just gonna do it just like the way you've done your quiz and stuff like that. The only difference between the quiz and the test is, for the quiz, you guys normally get 2 shots at it. For the test, you only get 1 shot, right? And usually for the quiz, I put like a 90-minute time limit or a 60-minute time limit, whatever it ends up being. For the test, now you got 4 hours, right? But other than that, it's going to work exactly the same. For the second test, we might do like a Zoom session where I'm going to set up like a couple of times. And so one time might be like a Wednesday night, and it might be from like 5:30 to 9:30 or something like that. And I'll tell everybody like, hey, listen, you're gonna have to make sure that you schedule some time. And I might have one for us like on a Wednesday night, and I might have one for us like on a Thursday morning. And you guys will just have to kind of coordinate which is the one that best fits my schedule. And the only thing I tell people is like, listen, if the test is going to start at 6:30, um, try to sign in as close to 6:30 as possible, so I can give everybody the directions kind of at the same time. Um, and if the test is going to start at 6:30, and like, sir, I'm working until 6:30, but I should be home and I can do it at 6:45. I can log in. That's no big deal. I just don't. There's just some people in the past who like they log in at 9, right? And it's like, look, we were starting at 6:30. You can't log in at 9, and it, I've been sitting here since 6:30. I can't stay here. Now you're coming in at 9. I can't wait till midnight now. That kind of thing. So I'll just tell her, but we'll probably do that for the second test. But for the first test, it's just like the way you're doing your quizzes.
Okay.
Yeah. And like I said, you guys can use your calculator. If you use that, if you all have that app that I've been using, that's fine too. Guys, I did find out just recently in one of my other classes, I have an in-person class. It's a different course, but I just found out that that app is not free for iPhones or iPads. It used to be, and apparently now they're charging. But there's another one, and it's called something like Calculate 84. Guys, if you don't want to get sent that, you can go to any of the libraries at SPC, and you can check out like a graphing calculator if you want to do that. So, and the only reason I was suggesting the app is most of us have a smartphone. Um, and if you were to go to like Walmart or Target or something like that and buy one of those calculators, it's easily going to be $100. When some of the apps like that Graph and Calc app, like I said, it used to be free for Apple products. So when I got it a year ago, it was free. Now they're charging like $5.99. But even then, $5.99 is much less expensive than $100 at Walmart or Target or Best Buy or something like that. But there's other ones out there too. Like I said, there's one called Calculate 84. It's exactly the same, and on the Apple products, it's free. So you don't even have to spend $5.99. But my point was, I didn't want anybody to feel obligated. Like, do I need to go to Walmart and spend $100 and another $100 on a calculator? No, you don't. You can always go to the library and check one out. But if you decide, I want that Graph and Calc app, it's $6, right? You can spend $6 if you want to. I just don't want you to feel like you need to go spend $100. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of my reasoning behind that.
Okay. No, that's fine. And on the review for the test, we can actually start it and then stop it anywhere, right?
Yeah, the review, it's just like any other homework assignment, David. So you can definitely do it in chunks, and that would be my recommendation. And so on Tuesday night, guys, I have the college algebra class, but it actually meets in person. It's in Wesco. And what I was telling them last night is, like for instance, right now the problems that Liz asked me about, and like the one that you sent me earlier today, David. What I would do if I were you guys is, and I'm going to share something with you guys so you can see what it is I'm looking at. So let me do this because I want you guys to see this. So let me pull up the review real quick. And that's fine. Go with this. Okay. And I'm going to share my screen with you guys again so you can see what it is I'm looking at. Let me see. Okay. And let's do this. Here we go. Okay. So here's my review, right? And I'm pulling up the review here. And again, it's got 49 questions. I'm trying to see. Here we go. Okay, I knew there was a way. They changed the format of this, but by the way, guys, if you ever want to skip around to questions, obviously you can hit this thing here. And if you want to go to question 12, there's question 12, right? You can kind of do that kind of thing. So I'm going to see if I can pull something up. Okay, so I want to say the other day, I probably sent you guys a video, and we might have even done one in one of our sessions where we did like finding the distance and the midpoint. So what I would do if I was sitting where you guys are sitting is I would do, out of the problems that we have here, I would do as many of the easiest ones. I would do all of those first, right? So like David, these were some of the problems you were asking about earlier, right? So look, let's find, use the graphic tool to graph the equation. So guys, if I were to pull this up and, yep, you guys can see exactly what I'm looking at. And just so you can see what it is we're going to do, the equation is 1/3 x minus 4. So if I were to do this, I'm going to click my line. I'm going to start down here at -4. And then I'm going to go up 1 and over 1, 2, and 3. And I'm going to save it. And I'm going to check my answer. And we got it. Okay, is this a constant function? No, remember, constant functions, guys, would go straight across left and right. So it's not a constant function. There we go. Okay. And what's our domain? Remember, the domain is going to be, for any line, guys, the domain is always going to be all real numbers. So I'm going to go from negative infinity to
Positive
infinity. And I would check my answer. And then what's my range? The same thing. From negative, oops, sorry. From negative infinity all the way up to positive infinity. And check my answer. Okay. And so we got that one right? So what I would do is I would go through every single problem that I already know how to do, right? Every problem that I know how to do, I would do as many of these as I can. So I'm just kind of skipping around, and I know we haven't seen these yet. These are a little bit coming on a little bit later. But I would do as many of these problems as you can. And then that, and again, like you said, David, you can do it in pieces. So you could do, 3 or 4 problems one day and another 3 or 4 or 5 the other day, whatever it is. And then the day that we're going to review, then you'll know which are the questions that we need to go over, right? And so the idea is try to do as many as you can before that day. So that day we're working on the ones that you know what, I need help with this one. I don't know how to do this one, or I don't know how to do that one, that kind of stuff. And this way we can really make the best use of our time that day, because I want to make sure that we can answer as many of the questions as you guys have.
Correct.
So, David, Liz, does that make sense too?
Yes, sounds good.
Yeah.
Perfect
Okay,
sense.
just wanted to make sure. Any other questions you guys have for me that you want me to go over or anything? David, you're good?
No, I'm good so far. I'm good.
Okay. Liz, how are you?
Yes, doing good. Thank you.
Okay. So guys, remember, every Wednesday night I'm going to do this. Really what Wednesday nights are is just my time that's dedicated specifically for you, for your class, right? Not for my other classes, but for yours. But I don't want you to feel that you can only, that you have to wait till Wednesdays to ask me. So at any point in time, later tonight, tomorrow morning, you got a question, send me a message on Pronto, right? I'll make a video. I'll say, look, you guys, this is the question we got. Let me make a video. I'll talk you all through it, and I'll send it out. And I send it out to your class. And then, like I was telling you guys, I have that hybrid class, the college algebra class that I have in Wesco on Tuesday nights. You guys are at the same spot, right? Your class is no different from their class, other than I get to see them once a week because they signed up for a class event one day out of the week. So when they ask me a question and I send the video to them, I send it to you guys as well. And when you guys ask me a question, not only do I send it to your class, I send it to their class as well, because you guys are at the same spot, right? So like last night in class, I went over some material, and then I was answering questions just like the way we're doing here. So again, the more questions you have, guys, send them my way. I'm happy to help you guys. I really want to. I know nobody asked to be in this pandemic, and I know a lot of us would probably rather be in an in-person class, but we're dealing with this thing the best we can. So make sure that I just really want to emphasize that I'm here to help, guys. Don't feel like, am I bothering him because I've already asked him 3 questions? Bother me. This is why they pay me, right? This is why I'm here. Otherwise, I'm just here at home going like this, right? Because I got nothing else to do. So please bother me, guys. This is why I'm here, okay? So I'll tell you what, guys. If y'all don't have any other questions, I will let you guys go. But like I said, you need anything, just reach out. I'm happy to help, okay?
Appreciate it. very much.
Yes, sir. David, you take care. Liz, you take care as well. Okay. And yeah, of course.
Likewise, thank
And
you.
I'll talk to you guys soon. Okay. All right. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye.